Alright, we'll again, I just wanted to give you a glimpse. The equations that I showed you, the incompressible flow equations, they can be used to solve the flow, and we use that via finite element method. Of course, we will do all this in this course, but I just wanted to give you a flavor that those equations have to be cast in a certain formulation, and some technology has to be used so that if you have any instabilities that might come because of computing, they are taken care of, and you are only dealing with instabilities because of the flow. Okay. And then you put this using an algorithm on a parallel computer. Okay. So, here is a picture of a very old parallel computer. This is actually the first parallel computer that I used from one of my projects. This is, I am very grateful to the Department of Science and Technology for the support to set up this computer. It was really a game changer as far as our research group is concerned. So, the idea is that in one cabinet you have 32 nodes. So, each one of them is a computer, a rack, a node in a rack, and then there are a lot of cables behind the rack, and all these are computed, they are connected in a certain topology. So, at that time this was state of the art, a gigabit switch, but now of course this is outdated, you would have much faster communication between the nodes. So, you generate a grid like the one I showed you for an aircraft. So, here we were interested in flow past a circular cylinder. So, a grid has been generated, and now you want to distribute computing to each of these processors. So, what is done is you go through what is called a domain partitioning. So, you generate a mesh and then you partition it into, let us say, if I have 32 nodes or cluster processors, I can make 32 of these partitions and distribute one each across them, and they all have the same number of unknowns, so that they have roughly the same amount of work and they will all get done together. What I want to do is minimize the communication between these different nodes. So, for that I minimize the number of nodes that these partitions share with each other. So, the information that is needed between these partitions is really only at the boundary. So, if I just scattered the nodes randomly across this computer, then everybody would need all the information because they need information from the neighbors. But if I do it in this smart way, then I only need to communicate between these processors the individual neighbors for each partition. Anyway, we put this on a computer, and there was an algorithm to parallelize this, and a method was used to solve these equations, and there are some libraries that are used, the message passing libraries, and typically we store data at 3 levels, okay, in a finite element program. So, we will talk about this in more detail. So, if you look at this mesh, these points where these edges intersect, those are called nodes, and as you can imagine, each one of these little regions is called an element. So, we store data at nodes, at elements, and at the equation level, and then we kind of go back and forth between these data structures. Mantra to keep in mind is that computations are fast, but communication of information is slow and expensive. That is because the computers are becoming faster. So, if I want to compute, that takes less time, but if I want to convey information between various nodes, then many would have to wait, and therefore that is slow. So, this is one thing that we keep in mind. In a typical finite element program, okay, you will see that most of the time is spent, almost 80% of the time is spent in just solving the linear equation system Ax equal to b. and very little time is spent in communications, almost 10%. Okay. Okay, this is a picture of one of the older clusters that we had at the computer center. Now of course we have a brand new installation coming up, but let me just share some information about this setup. So this one had about 372 nodes, computing nodes, and on each node there are certain cores. So there are roughly 3000 cores, and because this whole machine is a central facility, each user can only use up to 640 cores. Okay, this is just to have equitable distribution of resources, and this is the spec of each of the processors, and the nodes are connected by an interconnect. So that's a 40 gigabit per second. It's called InfiniBand. Now what we want to do is take a problem and then see how it scales up. So if I take a particular let us say flow problem and I run it on just one core versus I run it on 2 cores, 100 cores, 500 cores, it should speed up. In fact, it should speed up in an ideal case linearly. So if I have 100 cores or 100 computers, then it should take 1/100th the time to solve the problem. Okay. So the next slide, I want to show you some speed up studies. So we took a problem, and these are the various mesh that have been used to solve that problem. So these are the number of nodes and elements and the equations. For example, M1 is the coarsest mesh that has about 2 million grid points, which leads to about 17 million equations. So these are solved, these nonlinear equations are solved at every time step. The finest mesh has about 47 million nodes, okay, and it has about 370 million equations. Okay, so something like a 0.4 billion equations, and we want to see how fast this thing scales up on a computer. So x axis is the number of cores that we are using, and the y axis is the speed up. So speed up simply refers to, if I run a problem let us say on 200 cores, then speed up means compared to if it was running on 1, what is the fast rate that I get on 200. Okay. So as you can see, if I look at the coarse mesh, the M1, so it scales up to some point, and then beyond a certain point if I increase the number of cores, it does not help me. Okay, so it is the same problem as I alluded to earlier in this talk, where I said I would like you to add 1000 numbers and there were 20 students. Now suppose I say there are 1000 students and 1000 numbers. Okay, you can see that parallelism is not really going to help so much, because I distribute 1000 numbers to you, each one gets one number, there is nothing to add, and then you just communicate to your neighbor. Okay. So the performance actually starts saturating after a certain number of cores. So for this problem, if I use anything more than let us say 200 or 250 cores, I do not really gain so much. On the other hand, if I go to this fine mesh, now you see I can get higher performance by using more number of processors. So the idea of this table is that when I want to solve a particular problem, I can actually run this test and see what is the optimal number of cores or processors that I can use. Conversely, the bigger the computer I have, the bigger is the problem that I can solve. Okay. So today if I can do with my computer, let us say flow over half a wing, maybe if I get 10 times the computer, then perhaps I can do flow past a full aircraft, as an example. So this is pretty good scaling. The red line is the ideal scaling. That means with 700 cores I would get a speed up of 700. That is ideal, you would almost never get that. Okay, but look at our codes, they are actually scaling quite well. So, using these codes we have been able to do a set of problems, and I just thought it would be a good idea to just give you a flavor of what we do with these finite element analysis. So, this first problem here is actually flow through an intake of an aircraft. So, as an aircraft flies, the engine needs air, it is called an air breathing engine, and the engine actually you put in fuel in it and burn it. So, there is a flame that is there in the engine which is responsible for the combustion, but you want the airflow speed inside the combustion chamber to be small. If it is too large, then you can imagine the flame will blow away. So, the idea is when an aircraft is moving at a fast speed, so you can see this is the engine, the center body of an engine. So, as it is moving forward, the air should come in, and wherever combustion takes place it should slow down. So, we want to convert the kinetic energy of the flow into high pressure and in an efficient manner. So, these are some calculations that were done to understand the instabilities that could happen in an air intake. These are some very canonical problems about transition of flow on bluff bodies. So, this is a circular cylinder going from one wall to the center of the wind tunnel, and we want to understand vortex shedding and the related transition. These are actually vortex induced oscillations. So, when you have unsteady flow on these bluff bodies, they can actually vibrate because of the forces acting on them. So, we have been able to do some simulations to understand that. This is a problem in transonic flow on airfoils. So, where you could have shock boundary layer interactions. This you saw an example from the picture in Boeing, where these are high lift devices. So, we have the leading edge slats and the trailing edge flaps, and the idea is that when an aircraft is about to land or take off and you want to generate additional lift, these devices are used. This is high speed flow for a bluff body, and you can see the shock structure here, and of course also the shocks in the wake, but they need to be resolved well, and typically what is done is a finite element mesh is adaptively refined so that you get a higher resolution near the shock. So, the mesh itself depends on what the solution is. Okay, so, that is called adaptive gridding. This is a picture of flow past badminton shuttlecocks. This one is a duck feather shuttle, and this one here is a synthetic shuttle, and we are interested in finding out how different the flows are which cause different trajectories of these shuttlecocks. Here is an example of a ram air parachute. So, as you are aware, parachutes are roughly of two kinds, the round canopy one which generate drag, but then there is also something like a wing, a ram air parachute, which can actually glide and do a targeted delivery. So, we have done some analysis for those parachutes. This is a project that we had from Indian Railways to see what can be done to retrofit engines if we have to increase their speeds. Okay, Indian Railways has plans to increase speed of all its locomotives, and this was an exercise to investigate the pressure drag. This is actually a flow over a wing of an aircraft, a transonic flow. So, we were interested in looking at the shock boundary layer interaction. These are some studies to look at transition because of the laminar separation bubble on an Epler airfoil, both in 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. And this one is flow through a complete wind tunnel. So, if you want to design a supersonic wind tunnel, these simulations can help you with that. So, this is just some of the problems that have been computed using these methods. One can also use these methods to look at coupled problems, and I want to show you one example of the case of a fluid structure interaction. Okay, so, although this course is mainly about fluid dynamics, but I thought you would be interested to see a situation where there is an interaction between the fluids and solids. So, this is a toy problem, just to give you a flavor. So, there is a cylinder which generates an unsteady flow, and attached to it is some kind of a flexible plate, a filament. And then because of vortex shedding, this filament can vibrate. Okay? And this picture actually shows you how this is being handled computationally. So, you can see the challenges here. The geometry is changing, but not in a prescribed manner, that is part of the solution. Okay? So, there is a very tight coupling between the flow and the structure. So, we have to solve the equations for fluid mechanics, we have to solve the equations for solid mechanics. Then there is a grid, and this gridding has to be done dynamically on the fly as the body deforms. The loads from the fluid have to be transferred to the structure, and likewise the deformation and the velocities that you get on the structure, they have to be transferred back to the fluid. Okay? So, we have done many other problems. This was just a test problem for fluid structure interaction. Anyway, I would like to stop here, and I hope you have got a flavor of what CFD is and what high performance computing is. And in the next session, we would like to see what exactly we would be studying in this course. Thank you very much.